Imagine you are hiking in the freezing cold Norwegian wilderness, just minding your own business, when suddenly, you stumble upon a burnt body. No ID, no belongings, just a few strange items scattered around, and as you look closer, you realize nothing about this person makes sense. No one knows her name. No one knows where she came from. And every clue leads to more confusion. But the strangest part isn't even what they found with her body. And before you ask, no, this is not the plot of the next Bond movie. Though honestly, even Bond would have been confused by this one. I mean, at least his mysterious women have names. This is the kind of case where the deeper you dig, the less sense anything makes. It all started on November 29, 1970, when a father and his two daughters were out hiking in Isdal, also known as Death Valley. Which, let's be real, is already a red flag. I mean, who names a place Death Valley and expects nothing creepy to happen there? The scene they stumbled upon was something straight out of a nightmare. Among the rocks lay the burnt remains of a woman. Around her, investigators found the kind of items that make detectives scratch their heads. A watch frozen in time. Empty bottles that once held some kind of accelerant. And enough sleeping pills to knock out a small army. Now, I get packing a first aid kit for hiking. This was something else entirely. And trust me, the contents of that crime scene were just the beginning of the strange items surrounding our mystery woman. The first red flag came when investigators tried to identify her. Simple enough task, right? Wrong. This woman might as well have been a ghost. But here's the detail that made the detectives question everything. Someone had meticulously removed every single label from her clothing. Not just one or two, every single label. The clothing labels were weird enough. But then investigators had a tip and they went to check the Bergen train station. At the train station, they found the woman's two abandoned suitcases. What they found in those two abandoned suitcases would make even the most hardened detective raise an eyebrow. They found wigs, and not just one emergency bad hair day wig, but an entire collection that would make a Broadway costume department jealous. Mixed in with international currency and, because the story wasn't strange enough already, notebooks filled coded messages. The spy theory started making more sense once people at the local shops started talking. Especially after what happened at that bakery. But we'll get to that. Remember those old spy movies where the mysterious woman speaks multiple languages and changes identities like most people change socks? Well, our Isdal Woman made those characters look amateur. Witnesses placed her at hotels across Europe, each time with a different name, a different story, and apparently, a different wig every time. She spoke German, French, and English flawlessly. And this was the 1970s, the height of the Cold War. The perfect time for a spy to be wandering around Europe, or the perfect cover story for something even stranger. But just when investigators thought they had her figured out, they discovered something in her hotel room that changed everything. Something that didn't fit the spy narrative at all. Something that pointed to a completely different story. Among the items in her room was a prescription for a rare type of medication. But get this, the label had been removed again. Who does that? Even more chilling. Witnesses from the bakery remembered something that sent shivers down their spines. The woman had been seen buying pastries just days before her death. And she wasn't alone. She was seen with a mysterious man, described as having dark hair and a foreign accent. But here's the kicker. No one ever came forward to identify him. It was as if he vanished. The official report eventually called it suicide. But ask yourself, who commits suicide after carefully removing every trace of their identity? Who travels across Europe with a collection of wigs and fake identities? Just to end it all in a place called Death Valley? And what about those coded messages they never managed to decode? Then there was the autopsy report. The doctors found traces of sleeping pills in her system, but not enough to kill her. That means she was either drugged and then burned, or she took them and then something else happened. And if that wasn't enough, there were no signs that she had inhaled the smoke from the fire, meaning she was already dead before the flames consumed her body. That's not suicide, that's murder. The final twist to our story? In 2017, modern forensic testing revealed something about the Isdal Woman that shattered every theory investigators had built over the decades. But to understand why this discovery was so significant, you need to know about one final piece of evidence, a tiny detail everyone had overlooked for 47 years. Through isotope analysis of her teeth, scientists were able to pinpoint that she likely grew up in Central Europe, possibly Germany or France. But that still didn't tell us who she was. The Isdal Woman's true identity remains a mystery. Was she a spy caught in a game that went too far? A criminal trying to outrun her past? Or something else entirely? Next week, we're diving into another cold case that makes this one look almost normal. Yes, really. Until then, maybe think twice before hiking in places with death in the name. Unless you're really committed to getting info for your true crime channel. In which case, bring backup.